All right, guys, welcome back for another episode. I have my friend Lee here. We're going to be discussing all the stuff that went on at E3, kind of our post E3 comments. And Lee, I was going to ask you to start off with, what did you think about all three of the conferences?
The conferences, that's definitely where everybody kind of laid it all out on the line. I mean, with the exception of Nintendo, who wasn't actually present to do a conference there. It was more of a web conference thing. But, Microsoft and Sony pulled the gloves off. Sony, for sure. I think that they really went out for the knockout punch with, directly attacking the shortcomings of Xbox One. Most importantly, I think Nintendo did really well with showcasing some of the newer titles coming out. Also, kind of delving into the fact that more third-party support is coming for the Wii U, which is something they haven't had since its launch. But Microsoft, despite their shortcomings, they have shown a lot of new IPs. The game catalog that's coming out for Xbox One is unbelievable. I think the one saving grace for Microsoft right now is going to be the number of that's the word I'm looking for. The number exclusives, the number of exclusive games that are coming out for Xbox One. That's going to be their saving grace.
Yeah, I actually learned a lot more about the Microsoft. I guess what they're trying to go with and do with the Kinect system today that made me a lot more hopeful than what I was, I guess, Monday. I think the PlayStation pretty much knocked it out of the ballpark with the stuff that they presented. Basically, the not requiring you to be online to play games. I think that's the biggest thing for them. We found out yesterday that as far as used games go, that they weren't really as truthful as what we thought in the original conference. Because, they basically said that you could play any used game, no problem, on the PS4. And, that wasn't the case. We're finding out now that it's basically up to the third-party developers. Now, the first-party titles you can play and trade in and buy used and all that. But as far as, like Assassin's Creed, Destiny, and stuff like that, it's going to be up to the developers, which I'm afraid, this is what we're going to end up going toward in the future. Because right now, GameStop's making all the profits off reselling games, and the developers aren't getting any of the money. So where we might not like it as much because we're not getting the games as cheap as we want them, it's going to be a good thing in the end because that means more games we're going to get because the developers aren't going to be as hard up as they've been in the past. Take, for instance, the Kingdoms of Amalur that came out last year or year before. That was Kurt Schilling's development studio, and that was their first game. And a lot of the games that are coming out nowadays are, have a movie budget. They're hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe that one was probably $150, $200 million. And
the more successful ones, for sure.
Right, and all it takes for those small companies like that just started up is one flop and they go bankrupt, and maybe that'll prevent some of these companies from closing down because, I think that's where you see EA and Ubisoft doing a lot better is because they have big games coming out every year, multiple games. So one game doesn't necessarily, if it flops, doesn't necessarily kill the company. But, even just this past year, THQ closed, and that was a big studio. THQ was developing games probably all the way back to Super Nintendo, Sega, maybe even NES before that. So
I liken this move with them putting it in the developers' hands. If you remember a few years ago with the Screen Actors Guild, I believe is what it was. They had a big falling out with a lot of the publishers and things like that because people in the guild wanted royalties for DVD sales and things like that. You know, a lot of the TV shows, and they were threatening to go on strike because of it, because of the massive amount of online sales with that, also with your online streaming and things like that. But I think that the direction that they might move with all of this is not so much, especially with the next gen consoles, with so much downloading and so much digital media content, that they may even run into a thing where it's almost like a streaming service, kind of like Netflix and Redbox, but moving it kind of like with GameFly, where they have a digital online library where you download. Actually, PC is already doing it with Steam. And I've said before, you know, the first company that decides to do something kind of like a Steam box, so to say, you know, where you're able to download the game ahead of time and reserve that game ahead of time, and as soon as it hits midnight on release date, it's on your machine and it's ready to go.
Well, I think basically what it is we're kind of behind the times. We really probably should be moving to a digital only basis. You know, at this point, I think they're in the next 10 years will definitely be there. And I know for a lot of the collectors like myself, you know, we're kind of stuck in our ways of wanting like a physical copy and being able to, I guess, you know, play it 10 years, 15 years down the line, even when they shut off the servers. And
Right.
And I mean, hopefully we'll still be able to do it. They'll, at some point, maybe late in the console's life cycle, they'll take off the restrictions for requiring you to be online. But you know, just listening to some of the pundits today talk about why they're requiring the system to be online, and this is why I was kind of hopeful for Xbox One, was a lot of them are actually, like, even when you turn the game off, stuff is still happening with your character in the cloud. So even, you know, when you turn off your system, stuff is still going on in that world, you know, in the cloud. And a lot of the stuff that's happening with the games, while they're able to maybe have so much stuff going on at once, is they're taking a lot of the computing out of the actual system itself. And it's doing it in the cloud and then sending it down, so your system isn't required to do as much. And it makes sense, you know, hearing it like that from, I guess, what we were originally thinking. And
it's just a huge change from what gamers have been accustomed to for so long. Is I'm talking with some of my friends. It's like, you know, especially people like and that don't make as much money, you know, young kids that don't, you know, they're taking mom and dad's allowance and waiting for Christmas to get, you know, new games. It's not like, you know, adults that, you know, go out and buy the newest releases and things like that. And then also, GameFly is very popular. A lot of people use GameFly because they don't always want to buy that. Now, with PlayStation, and I think Xbox is doing it too, is you're able to play through, you know, like an hour of the game before you decide to buy it. You know, that's kind of, you know, where they're wanting to go with it. But at the same time, you look at the massive economy in used games that, you know, here, take 3 games I've already beat 10 times over and give me this new hot title, and then I'm going to do that 3 times, and then you'll eventually see these back again. Right. So, I mean, and at the same time, kind of at the same time, like, you know, you're looking at that. You know, we were talking earlier about this could put more money in the pockets of developers, get better games and things like that, and that's all fine and good. But, you know, I think at some point, you know, maybe this will kind of cut down on the, you know, like we're talking about the download digital only. They could cut down on the footprint of packaging and things like that, give more money in the pockets. If you still want to do it, cool. If not, you know, I mean, you look at it, what digital download's done for, you know, the music industry. You know, CDs are few and far between, you know, unless you really, really want it. And, of course, all the vinyl fanatics. But otherwise, you know.
Right. And I remember when the digital started happening with music, and a lot of people kind of went kicking and screaming with that. And they're like, no, I want the CD. And, you know, I think it's just a sign of the times. And they're going to eventually take us all kicking and screaming into the next generation of games.
And I think a big holdup with people, you know, with the connectivity thing is let's be honest, if you have one of the major internet service providers like Comcast or Cox or something like that. Until everybody has Google Fiber or Uverse Fiber or something like that, it's not reliable enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that being connected. Now, mind you, for me, when I turn on my Xbox, it's always online when I go on my Xbox because I'm doing, either watching Netflix or I'm playing online and I want to update all my stuff online. But yeah, you don't want to have to check in every 24 hours because let's say your cable is out. I know you mentioned that on your last video. I mean, if your cable's out for an extended period of time, then what are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and look at this, $500 piece of machinery sitting on your, entertainment center.
Right. Well, that I think is probably one of the stumbling blocks that they've had, and maybe if they go back and they might do it, all it would take would probably be a software patch to where they could take off the requirements to that, and I think that would really, I guess, kind of smooth over a lot of people that kind of were pissed off about that, and I think the other thing that hurt them was the price point being $4.99 as opposed to the PS4 being $3.99, and I understand what they're doing. They're wanting you to have the Kinect and to use it, I guess, with your TV and to do all that, but I know that they were talking to the guys that developed Rise. And in case you didn't know, like Rise was going to be a Kinect-only title maybe a year or two ago. And they kind of scrapped the idea because even the developer, and this was just yesterday or today, he said, we got so far with the game and we just couldn't do any more with the Kinect. As far like, I guess it just gets repetitive, doing the same thing with the Kinect. And, even he said it just, we kind of took it to its limit, and instead of doing that, we just kind of redid the whole game and made it third party. And I think the Kinect is going to be more used as for like voice commands in games, and even maybe QuickTime events. They said today that the Kinect now is so advanced that it can pick up your movements, like say during a game or something's coming at you, you can dodge left and right, and it's very receptive to what's going on, what you're doing on the screen, and it can even pick up like heartbeat. I was watching today, and I guess like when you're putting pressure on certain bones in your body, so I mean it's very advanced. It's going to be interesting to see how they implement it in games. Now, voice commands in games like Call of Duty could be very cool, commanding your squad to go somewhere, or even like Skyrim. Now, I know the Skyrim, being able to like actually say the command of what magic or whatever you wanted to use in the game, that was pretty cool. There was a little bit of a delay in the old Kinect, which probably will be alleviated in this new one. But, I don't know if you noticed, but none of the games really showed any use of the Kinect. Like, they kind of strayed away from that altogether.
Well,
and, it just makes me wonder, why is it a necessity, even though I see what they're wanting to do by trying to make it, they want you to use it to do stuff, which is cool, but I think they would have done better to do it like Sony did, because Sony's offering the system, the controller, and a headset, just your basic bundle for $3.99, and then they're selling the iToy for $69.99 or something like that. Now, Microsoft could have done the same thing like they're doing now, and just offered the system for $3.99, and then offered the Kinect, for extra for people that wanted it. But
well, just to play devil's advocate here there's no question that the Kinect is far and away more advanced than the iToy for PlayStation 4 as far as the voice commands and things like that. And I think that's kind of what they're looking at is the Xbox One is much more than a game console now, and that's what they're really betting the bank on is, hey, you can hook up everything to this. This is your one stop for entertainment, and that's that was a huge selling point for me when they first announced it. But now with all the other stuff coming out, I mean, look, I'm an Xbox fanboy. You know, I mean, even with all the developments of, oh, you got to be online all the time, and you're going to have some trouble with your used games and trading games and things like that, they still have such a strong support with their first party titles that it could be what pulls them out of the rut. And especially with these new developments coming out with PlayStation 4 from Sony saying, hey, the developers are going to have a lot to do with this. And this is something I wanted to touch on is we've got Diablo 3 coming out for both systems. Elder Scrolls Online coming out for both systems. You know, a lot of these games, Final Fantasy. You remember Phantasy Star Online when it came out, you know, years and years ago on Dreamcast. Everybody's like, oh, cool, we can play this online. Well, you have to pay a subscription to play it. That's something else. Do you really think that Blizzard is going to treat us any different as console gamers with making us not have a Battle.net login? You know,
I wonder about that because from what I saw online, maybe on Kotaku or one of those websites, I don't think that Diablo 3 is actually going to make you play online. I think you can actually play it offline, which I find really cool, and I'm going to buy it just for that reason. I love Diablo. I love Blizzard as a development studio, but I hate the online requirement because, I mean, like I was saying in that last video, we went through Katrina, and our internet was out for weeks, if not over a month for some people, or 2 months, I think, for the most extreme cases. And, you know, stuff like that, like, when we got our power on, like, what did we sit around to do? We played Xbox and PlayStation and stuff like that, you know, to pass the time. And I just would hate for something like that to cripple us being able to play, you know, games. And that's one of the reasons I'm probably going to go with both systems. Xbox was really smart by putting out so many exclusive titles. That, I mean, there's some really cool stuff that I want to play that's exclusive to them. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that's saving the Wii U right now is their exclusive titles. Now, when they keep coming out with more and more, they're going to eventually have enough for people to justify actually buying the Wii U. It's not at that point yet, but I think that's the way it's going to be with Microsoft. And the key for Microsoft is they're going to have to keep pushing out these exclusive titles. They're going to have just as strong an E3 next year, and I hope they planned ahead with some of these studios on developing games, you know, so they'll have a constant stream of exclusive games. Because on the Xbox 360, they had a few, but it wasn't near as much as was on the original Xbox, because you had a ton of exclusive games just on the original Xbox. And, you know, I think the 360 had all the Halos, Halo Wars, and Alan Wake, and, you know, with a few others, but for the most part, you know, it was pretty slim. But I wanted to go from that, and I want to talk about what are the games you're excited for, and we'll go kind of system by system.
Absolutely.
And talk. We'll start off with Microsoft since they were first.
Well, like we said earlier, this is going to be their saving grace, I think. And as far as, you know, the biggest thing is, and just like we've talked about before, is you know, launch titles. And Microsoft is hitting it out of the park with what I think is going to be probably the contender of the best launch title for this system, which is Rise. I saw the demo for that, the gameplay of that. It's like playing 300, but you're a Roman soldier. It looks awesome. The quick time events look seamless. They don't look clunky and aggravating like they are in some of the other games. It's beautifully rendered, and I mean, we're talking about very early in the development here. And, you know, I'm hoping that it's all done by the time of launch. I mean, they're saying that it's going to be. Also with Xbox One, you know, I was absolutely blown away by that teaser trailer for Halo. The new Halo is going to be, if at anything, I'm going to buy a $500 Halo machine from Microsoft because that trailer was so epic.
Yeah,
Also,
I know you're a big Halo man.
Halo, and then transition right into the first person shooters. No matter what system going on, there's also we're looking at the console war right now. Let's not forget that also this holiday you're going to have the first person shooter war with Call of Duty Ghosts and Battlefield 4. And I don't know if you've been watching the streaming multiplayer from Battlefield 4 today. That game looks amazing. 64 players on the battlefield, not to mention your 2 commanders that can be part of. You can play that on PlayStation Vita, your tablet, your cell phone, and just endless possibilities with that. Taking down a freaking skyscraper with a tank is unbelievable. As far as the other exclusives for Microsoft, or not even all the exclusives. Well, no, I'm sorry. One of the exclusives I can't believe I forgot. Titanfall looks amazing. Titanfall is going to be one of those that everybody's really wondering about, considering the clout that the developers have for that game, and just the dynamic of having a mech that's kind of nimble and not clunky, and being able to have this free roaming thing. I think that's going to be a huge first party title for Microsoft.
Yeah, I really think Titanfall is going to be huge. It's by the guys that originally developed Call of Duty 4. It's Call of Duty 3, I believe, and they might have done the original.
It was the original Modern Warfare.
Right.
The guys that originally came out with Modern Warfare. So the ones that started the whole revamp of the whole thing, that started with Infinity Ward and everything like that. So what most gamers know of Call of Duty now, most console gamers in the current gen run of consoles, that's what we know. And, putting them into this next gen console for them to innovate something new, it's going to be exciting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I know you play a lot more Call of Duty than I do. I got burnt out on Call of Duty because it just seems like it's every year it gets rehashed, and that's why I like the Battlefield series, because they've been taking their time. It hadn't been an every year release. It's been, I want to say the last one came out 2 years ago, so they've actually had a lot of time to work with it, and that Frostbite engine looks amazing that runs on.
It kills whatever Call of Duty's running on. I'm not sure what it. I mean, I know Infinity Ward works really hard with their stuff for their multiplayer and things like that. And after watching the gameplay of both, I think Battlefield might have it beat. I mean, the learning curve on Battlefield is steep. I think that the dog thing in Call of Duty Ghost, I think a lot of people are going to get hung up on it. I'd love to see some more multiplayer to see what that's going to look like. But overall, just the scope of Battlefield 4, I think it's really going to blow people away, especially seeing as how, I know they're all launching on current gen and next gen. But I, in my opinion, I don't think that you're going to get any better than Battlefield 4 coming up this holiday.
All right, guys, welcome back for another episode. I've got my friend here. All right, we're gonna start. Dude, you don't know how many times I have to start over, like when I'm recording the video.
Assuming so. I'm assuming there's a lot of.
Oh my god! I had to. A lot of times I have to just sit there and I'll just stop it, and I have like 10 minutes of just shit that I have to delete. So.